damit herzlich willkommen.
A warm welcome in the Paulinum of Leipzig University. Thank you to the choir Lumina. They will present another piece of music later on. And my name is Nele Posthausen, and I am the moderator working on behalf of the Office for Equality, Diversity and Family Affairs. And we rearranged the stage. In between, I will give you some words of welcome. You are very important as an audience, as members of staff of the University of Leipzig, students, researchers, lecturers, professors. We would like to listen to you, what you think about our questions, and we would like to give you some food for thought. Before you got a code of conduct, we are looking forward to talk, to discuss with you. There will be a panel for us listening to you first and foremost. We want you to get into contact at eye level, and very often you can't guess how to address certain people, and we would like to welcome an open exchange free of discrimination. We would like to have a discussion round first and foremost, talking about the question how to withstand the headwind and how to strengthen women and girls in science. There will be a live stream, there will be recording, and there is English simultaneous interpreting. So if you have friends who want to listen in English language, then they can listen to the live stream and listen to the English interpretation. And then I would like to ask you to put your mobile phone in flight mode, using your mobile phone only maybe to take notes, so that in the end you know and do not forget what you would like to discuss with us. Before that, there are some impetus for our questions today. Today we have the Action Day Women in Science, as you all know, Alliances for Change. That's to say we have two big topics. First of all, women and girls in academia, and then second, a question about different alliances. The first impulse to think about what needs to change or modify comes from the Leipzig Science Network. We welcome the director, Katrin Leonhardt, from the Leipzig Science Network, and from the Office for Equality, Diversity and Family Affairs, we welcome Caroline Demus, and I would like to ask you to come to the stage. Talking about cultural change and alliances for equal opportunities, networks play a very important role. That is why I'm very pleased to have the first panel tonight on the occasion for women and girls in science, which is open for Leipzig. It was and still is open for all stakeholders and interested from different universities and higher educational institutes from Leipzig. This is great news, and I'm really pleased about it. And I would like to say thank you to the Office for Equality, Diversity and Family Affairs, Caroline Demus, and her team, so that you agreed to this adventure, so to speak, so that we can hold the event here in the Paulinum, and you did an awful lot of work and organized this event. Thank you very much for that. So far from my side, short and simple. So I'm looking forward to the evening to share our ideas and take home messages. And as having said, I hand over to Caroline. Thank you very much also for saying thank you to us and our team. And I would like to welcome you also on behalf of the team of the Office for Equality, Diversity and Family Affairs. The name is really long as the day is today. And it is a day to find out that there is improvement, but there's still room for improvement. And this is what we are dealing with on our everyday basis. And it's really interesting to discuss this issue with you, how about women and girls in science. We from our team know very well it is a team effort. You can't achieve something alone. We need to join forces to achieve our targets. So that is why it's really important that you are informed about what we plan tonight. It is a panel discussion, but you are all here present are our friends and acquaintances for tomorrow. So, and it's about equal opportunities, and of course it can start small scale. It is about the small gestures, so to speak, to open the room for all those who stand in front of closed doors. It is about to recommend people to panel discussions and to speak out, maybe for other people who don't dare to do that or can't do that. So we can also think big. So here it's also a joint effort to have this event here, Think Big. It's about allies, it's about alliances. And maybe we can questioning the whole system by asking right questions, listening, sharing ideas. So this is what we would like to see. This is what we are working for every day. And we are really pleased that you took the time that you are here today, not working in your daily routine, but that you accepted our invitation, that you are here tonight, and that you are obviously open and willing to share your thoughts and ideas with us. So, this having said, I hope we have an interesting and fruitful event.
Vielen Dank an das Leipzig.
Thank you very much to the Leipzig Science Network, represented by Katrin Schlüter and Caroline Demos from the Office for Equality, Diversity and Family Affairs. As you heard, the Office for Equality, Diversity and Family Affairs organized this event, and we will have a lot of input on the topic of women and girls in science at the Leipzig universities and beyond the Leipzig University. And I think we need one really important impulse. So the second impulse tonight comes from the Rector, Eva Inés Obergfell. The floor is yours.
Ja, vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen of Leipzig and Saxony's research institutions, particularly, can you hear me? So Professor Herzberg from the GWZO, colleague Müller, my colleague Professor Müller, colleagues from the university, from Leipzig. Where's my pro-rector? He's back there. So great to see you. Equal opportunity officers from the university, from the faculties, from the city of Leipzig, members of the civic society, and particularly women in science. As the patron of this event, it's a particular joy for me to see you all here and to have you here with us at home on the live stream, and to welcome you to this networking event as part of Women in Sense Alliances for Change. I'm delighted that our Office for Equality, Diversity and Family Affairs has worked together with the Leipzig Science Network to organize today's events and to give us this opportunity to network and to forge alliances. So let's use these next 2 hours to set new impulses, come up with new ideas. Let's think about how we can think together about how we can forge alliances which succeed in the face of the headwinds that we're all sensing. I've been announced as some kind of impulse giver, but I can only give you ideas, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what we can develop together in dialogue. So, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that I can stand here today before you as the second woman rector of the university, so So from 967 days, years. So after 967 rectors, male rectors, I'm the second female rector. So just a few decades ago, that would have been completely unthinkable. Just as it was unthinkable just a few years ago to have a university event with just a moment. We have a few men here too, but I think the female participation is around between 80–90%, so that's great to see. So thank you very much from me that you've all come today, that you've come and taken part in this action day, that you've come together, and you've taken one thing on board, is that we can have great ideas by ourselves and we can forge plans, but to realize those plans, we can only do that if we do it together, and together regardless of what gender we have. So our university is very old, as you know. It's older than the idea that women should be a given part of research, of teaching, and academic self-administration. And that's exactly why this International Day of Women and Girls in Science, why it's predestined to come to a simple but very consequential conclusion. And that is, no women, no university. No women, no university, I repeat. This statement rings true for the present, the past, the present, and the future. No women, no university. So that's not in my manuscript, but I think it's worth repeating. But first I'd like to look backwards. If we look into the university's history, we see big names, Nobel Prize winners, big discoveries, big ideas, but big gaps if you're looking for women. If you're looking for women in science, you might assume that our alma mater Leipzigensis, which is known better as the nourishing mother of Leipzig, you might think this was the only woman at the University of Leipzig for many years. But if you think that, you'd be mistaken. What was held to be an exclusively male domain was there were women. For 200 years, they weren't officially accepted. They were excluded from university buildings. They were excluded from lectures. So they were really excluded from these events. But nonetheless, these women were here. There were cultured wives of professors, and if you think about it, you could get very angry, but we're looking back into the past. So, cultured wives of professors who were generous patrons, extramural students, and they played an invisible but incisive role in the development of the university. It was a role that was very important and very significant for the University of Leipzig. Thanks to these pioneers, these courageous pioneers, the influence of women and their thirst for education grew inexorably, not just here at this university, but throughout universities throughout the world. And I'm thinking, now coming back to our university, I'm coming back to our Hope Bridge Adams. You might have seen her when you were standing in the queue outside. Hope Bridge Adams, who began her studies here in 1876. She was just an extramural student then. But in 1880, despite all the reversals and resistance, she was the very first woman in Germany to sit her medical examinations. She sat them here in Leipzig, the first woman in Germany. Eva Lips is another one. Also, you can see her outside. So with the slightly crazy spectacles. She was first of all the scientific research assistant of her husband. He was the ethnologist Julius Lips, who was appointed director of the Institute for Ethnology and Sociology of Law in 1948. He died relatively young, And then Eva Lips took over the head leadership of the institute, but she also wrote her doctorate and her postdoctorate, and she started her own career as a scientist. So we can state that the idea of a university as a men-only club is definitely a thing of the past, and it's been officially in the past for 120 years, because since 906, women have been allowed or been enabled to enroll at the University of Leipzig. So just since 1906, as recently as that. Today, now we're coming back to today, women are an integral and visible element in our university. We've got a number of courses where we have a majority women students, for medical studies, for example. These women study here, they teach here, they research here, they head projects, they head departments, institutes, faculties, and even the entire university. So it's an honor for me. But in many of these areas in our university, we still don't have gender parity. Equal opportunities are still not a given. It's still a work in progress. It's a progress which is sometimes faster, sometimes slower, and sometimes it's forced backwards. It's a process, it's progress, but it's a process that is, I think we can agree on this, it's a process which is not only moving forwards, but is continually encountering resistance and reversals. The world is in the process of reorganizing itself. We could say it's currently disorganized. Global events are marked by complexity and insecurity. They're marked by opposing power dynamics, and we hear ever louder voices about a return to allegedly tried and tested, time-honored systems of order. So I think, Ms. Demus, you can read my thoughts. Thank you. In times of crisis and social change, it's women in particular who have been impacted by retraditionalization. And they continue to be impacted by retraditionalization of gender roles. At the end of the 18th century, women were active participants in the French Revolution and were factors in the success of the revolution. But the social reaction was political exclusion, because the citizen, le citoyen, der Bürger, remained masculine. In the industrial age, women's labor in factories was rewarded with, was effectively social exclusion. So after women contributed so much in factories, there's a similar story in the post-war era when phrases like the sole wage earner and the little woman at home, and I think of the tax benefits of being married and so on. I won't mention that though. So this was after women contributed so much to rebuilding the country, they were pressed back into their old traditional gender roles. And we saw it again during the pandemic, when responsibility for care work took a step backwards, and mostly to women's detriment. Yes, we saw husbands working at home with their kids in the background when we were on Zoom calls, but I think the responsibility for care work it took a step backwards, and that was mostly to the detriment of women. And right now, and I think we're seeing anti-feminist ideas, they're increasing once again, and they're once again becoming socially acceptable, and that disturbs me. So what could a strong answer to these developments look like? Well, I think, ladies and gentlemen,
kann es gelingen? Ist die
how
Ausrichtung
can it be enough to call for an alliance? Is that the solution?
Frauen im Wissenschaftsbetrieb
Women
machen
in
die Erfahrung,
science
dass sie
often
vor der Wahl
find
gegen
themselves
Anpassung
facing a
oder
choice
Widerstand
to adapt or to resist,
sich dagegen auflehnen. Wie
to-
verändert man das System Wissenschaft? Wie passt man es an?
how do we change the
Was ist die
system of
richtige
science?
Balance, wenn es persönliches
What's the
Engagement,
right balance
Sichtbarkeit und das
when it's
strategische
to strike between personal commitment and
vermeintlich
strategic questioning of allegedly proven
Was können wir als
structures?
Teil des Wissenschaftssystems zur
What
Veränderung
can
zum
we, as
Kulturbeitrag
participants in the system of science,
hin zu
contribute
mehr Chancengerechtigkeit
to change
beitragen?
a shift
Wir
of
alle,
culture
jeder Einzelne, jeder Einzelne.
towards more
Ohne
equality of
Frage,
opportunity?
damals wie heute braucht
There's no
und braucht
question.
es diese
We need
Wegbereiterinnen,
pioneers,
Pioniere.
we need pathfinders, we need women
Ich habe
who
auch
blaze
die
trails,
Erfahrung gemacht,
just
und
as
ich
we
habe das
always
am
needed
Anfang
them.
angesprochen, dass Einzelkämpferinnen,
But I've learned, I mentioned this earlier, that I've learned that lone
nicht die
warriors
strukturellen Widerstände
can't
lösen
overcome
können,
structural resistance.
sondern ich denke,
Instead,
der Weg, und das ist jetzt
I
in der
think
Tat ein
this is
Impuls,
really
den
a
ich
case, this is an impulse that I'd like to give you,
Der
some
Weg geht über
inspiration for our
robuste
discussion.
Zusammenschlüsse.
The path has to be via robust alliances,
Zusammenschlüsse, Allianzen, die wissen,
alliances
und wirken,
that share
aktiv
knowledge, responsibility and agency, share them actively,
daraus etwas entwickeln.
and to develop something from them. So I'm looking forward to hearing your experiences.
Ihre Ideen
I'm looking
und freue
forward to
mich, wenn wir
hearing
gemeinsam
your
darüber
ideas.
nachdenken, wie
I'm
Allianzen
looking to
gestaltet werden.
sharing thoughts alongside you about how we can shape these
Und
alliances,
nicht neue Grenzen
how we can shape them to create new spaces, not new borders nor boundaries,
wachsen kann.
and how we can make our
Und so
collective
sehr mich
strengths
der hohe
grow.
Frauenanteil jetzt heute hier
And I'm delighted to see so many women here.
ist es mir auch zu betonen,
But it's also important to me to state very clearly that men are essential for if opportunities are to be truly equal. So I'd like to say thank you very much. I'd just welcome and thank the men here and at home who are supporting us in what we're doing here today. And so that's why I see in the word alliance, I see the word, this word all. I'm convinced that we all need all of us to make a strong alliance. So an alliance of people of all genders who are really committed to changing, to creating this human right, living that something it's in our basic law here in Germany. This isn't something we didn't have to be activists for this. It's in our basic law. As the rector, the university as an institution has a responsibility too, and that's important to me. It's an institution which we should understand, we should be able to ask ourselves all the questions. So, for example, who's speaking? Who's not, who's speaking, but also who's speaking, who isn't speaking? Who's deciding and who isn't deciding? Whose knowledge is seen as relevant? These questions and others have to interest as a university, not just us, because of course answering them is the first step in scientific inquiry, but also because we see ourselves as a site of production of critical knowledge. We have to find institutional answers to systemic deficits. And that means learning and advancing, developing structures. And I'm going to say this, it sounds simple, it's easy to say, but I know very well, I'm very aware that it's a permanent job, it's something we have to keep doing, it's a challenge, and it's not easy to find a solution. But I know very well that we have to do something here. And so I want to look forward now. The university is in the process of taking the next step in its long history as a full university. And we're not the full university of the past, we are the full university, the full university of the future. That's what we want to achieve, and we want to show with that that tradition and change are not contradictions. We want to say that tradition, that there has to be natural progress, so tradition encompasses the duty of renewal, and that's why The full university of the future is a promise to create the full university. We can't do all this. We can only, as the rectorate, we need you to achieve this. If we're going to make this, if we're going to realize this promise of creating the university of tomorrow. Because the university, we're not just educating students, we're also shaping the next generations of people who are shaping, who are acting and have values, embody values that will shape society of the future. And academic qualification and talent management, these are not just experts, these are the decision makers of tomorrow. The decision makers of both genders, I should emphasize. The questions that we're now investigating in our faculties will have positive impacts on people and society in the future. That's what we want to achieve, and that has to be what we want to achieve. What we're doing here at the university and in Leipzig will have an impact far beyond our campuses, laboratories and offices. And so for me as the rector, the future of our university includes demonstrating and exemplifying that women are heard, that they lead, that women research, that they discuss, that women shape equally and equitably with their colleagues. Because one thing is clear, no women, no university. Not yesterday, not today, and definitely not tomorrow. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Rektorin Eva.
Thank you very much, Rector Eva Inés Obergfell. We rearranged the stage once again. We would like to use the time. I would like to explain to you what your part is in the discussion. We just prepared a panel. It will take approximately 40 minutes, and we would like you to listen to the panelists, to take notes. Me as a journalist, I take notes all the time. I do not know how about you, whether you are constantly taking notes. So please make notes, ask your questions afterwards. And we arranged 4 different tables in the corners of the room. You see number 1 of Eva Inés Obergfell. There you can talk or discuss with the rector and also with the other panelists about the topics which are close to your heart. We will explain to you later on the different topics of the different tables, and then you can select which table you would like to share. Here in the middle there will kind of peer mentoring, peer exchange of ideas. We would like to discuss here with the colleagues from the Office for Equality, Diversity and Family Affairs, moderating your Q&A, your thoughts, and so on and so forth. So maybe sharing, then maybe I ask about the different workshops. What are your take-home messages from the different workshops, and so on and so forth. And we will have time later on to share our views and what you learned, or what are your take-home messages from the whole day. So as I said before, please take a look in the code of conduct. You received it via email, so how to get in the Q&A. And if you think, well, I do not like this or that, then please do not hesitate to address it. We know it's sensitive topics we are talking about. Next to me, there are 3 empty seats, and I would like to ask you to join me here on the panel, and I would like to introduce the panelists to you. I said before, and we meet again, Eva Inés Obergfell. She's a lawyer. She studied law. She worked in Bielefeld, Strasbourg, and Konstanz. She studied at these universities. She worked there, also in Argentina and Barcelona. So she has a lot, or she gained a lot of different insights and impressions. And she's the second woman as a rector here at the Leipzig University. We are pleased to welcome you, Ms. Eva Obergfell. Please take a seat.
Gehöre ich auf die andere Seite. Ich direkt was anders gemacht hier.
And the second panelist we would like to welcome is Professor Julia Herzberg, representing the Leibniz Institute for History and Culture of Eastern Europe, in short, GWZO. She is a member of the research community. We are pleased to welcome you here on stage. Welcome. The third panelist is Jean-Alexander Müller. He's director from the HTWK. Since 2024, he studied in Leipzig and did his PhD, and then he was at the Hochschule for Telecommunication before he became rector of the HTWK. Hello and welcome to you. In our title, Women and Science, Alliances for Change, there are two different topics we would like to combine. And I think in the beginning, it's really exciting to talk about alliances between the different institutes. And I wonder, what are you doing as a rector to forge alliances and to of course, we hear about using elbows. This we see amongst students as well. What can you do? How can you foster a climate for everyone feeling comfortable with? Well, to prevent such an elbow climate, an elbow mentality right from the beginning, I do not know how to do it, but I think we can exert a certain influence. This is my mission, to foster a culture, an open culture which is open for exchange, for dialogue, and despite the competition, of course, this is the core of the university. A competition belongs to research, belongs to academia, no doubt about it, but competition does not mean using your elbows. But despite a different conflict of interests, despite the competition, my father would say that we have a good and decent form of communication, and I could try to be an example, to be a pioneer. I can invite for dialogues, and I hope that many of my colleagues get infected, so to speak, and that we follow the same targets. So the target we described today, that we want to push the topic forward, which levers are important. You talked about fairness, you talked about equal opportunities. Does that mean for you that women need a special support, or are there equal opportunities for everyone? How do you approach that topic? Well, basically, this is the core of the whole topic. Of course, I don't want to say that we women need support. No, this is not about it. It's about something else. It is about, well, there are like subtle bias, and that we need to build structures who create awareness, so that professors are always male, for instance. We need to do something against it. So we need to have or create a certain awareness on the one hand. On the other hand, to work with role models at all the different levels. There's the one model, which holds also true for non-university research institutions, the cascade model. So the top is women on top, and then there is the expectation that, like a cascade, it develops top down. So this is what a University Leipzig does by electing me as a rector, and this brings me to myself, to my person. I try to be a role model. I have this role model function automatically being the rector of the university, and I try to use this function. Maybe this is enough as a first statement. I'm curious, what about your career path? Did you have role models? No, there weren't role models, actually, not many. Well, in legal affairs, and there are one or two female professors only. I, as a private lecturer, I worked at a university, not naming the university. I was the only female professor in the respective faculty, the only female professor. And after lecturers, students came to me and said, "Thank you." Normally, this does not happen. I think many of you know, no one comes to you after a lecture saying thank you to you. And one student came to me and said, "Thank you, you are the first woman during my whole study course." And I thought, well, it can't be. It was this century, actually. So, well, but you mentioned it before, since 1906. It's not that long time for us women at universities. So I would like to ask the question to you, Jean-Alexander Müller. You are rector at university here in Leipzig. You also think about how to promote people. You come from a subject with 22% women, only 22% women in IT. So what are your learnings? What do you do to support equal opportunities for your members of staff? And I think this is a topic which has been really important at the HTWK, a project which is quite old. We have a female science network, for instance. This was initiated. Mentees are included in that network. But when I came into office, the first action from my male deans was, I would like to see that we increase the ratio of female professors when appointing professors. And if there is a woman with the same professional background, the same career, then we would like to accept the female professors. So, but then the dean said, well, freedom of research, freedom of science, choosing the best. Well, this is exactly what I experienced. Of course, you feel quite limited as an appointment commission when you have different framework conditions, but selecting the best does not mean only those one who are suitable from an expert background, but we appointed some female professors during my time as rector, and I think this is something really important, but we do it. We are quite successful also. Unfortunately, we did not find a female pro-rector for my term in office because we have only a handful of female professors, and so we cannot afford to take one female professor out of teaching. But you would like to see more female professors? Yes, of course, I would like. But maybe we will find a female pro-rector for the next term in office. Will maybe become a female rector of the HTWK. This would be the third female rector at our higher education institution. And this we are pioneering the University of Leipzig, although we are not in a competition, I have to underline. So those of you who want to climb up the career ladder, so here you heard about your opportunities. So we had a panel about male allyship. I think it's okay if I speak about the obvious. We are a white panel. There are some more intersectionalities we have to take into account. How do you see these alliances? You are not affected. What does it actually, how you saw it, you are in a power position as a man. Well, depending on how you grew up, for me it's quite normal. I don't say person, I talk about a human being, so I assume a human being. I do not ask myself this question. It took some time, I have to confess, until I learned that there are these differences. I read something about it because sometimes you think about why are there so many female engineers in Arab area and not here. The colleague from Hamburg told me, well, maybe there is much ado about nothing. So women in science, because we are here together, you are committed, you are discussing this issue. Why don't we see 50% male or men here also discussing? I think this is where your question goes. I think it needs a good basic understanding, an open mind, awareness, and I think we have a really good culture at the Leipzig University of Applied Sciences. Ms. Herzberg, I would like to ask you a really concrete question. In summer 2023, you forged an alliance again, which is called Me Too History. It's against abuse. And you've been working in that network for some years. You are connected with different women. What did you achieve so far? This alliance was forged in 2023 because of two cases which happened at the HU Berlin. There were sexual abuses for more than 25 years, and this was tolerated by the university for, as I said, for more than 25 years. There was an accused rape, rape attempt, and this was the occasion for us to report about it and to ask why sometimes science is blind towards certain questions and towards certain cases of misuse, and we wanted to raise awareness. And from the Historiker Tag 2023 in Leipzig, we had a big event. We were assigned a room for 30 to 40 people, but we ended up with so many people, 200 people, so we had to change rooms because there's a huge interest in that topic to do something against power misuse, about these dependencies. There are no trigger warnings, but of course, if you can't stand the discussion, please take a break. But I think, nevertheless, you are interested in what we are discussing. So if I understood you correctly, there was great feedback. Many know about this awareness concept. If you don't have this awareness concept, you are not open. What did you see in history, science, what prevents women to climb up the career path in that area? So I think this is about this is a limited term at university. For instance, female postdoc students, they have a family, and then for them it is really difficult to work. And these fixed-term contracts are really difficult, are really an obstacle, and thus making women dependent on professors. And there's a certain power imbalance. And this enables power misuse, and there are not enough robust mechanisms to do something against it. I pass that question on to you, Ms. Obergfell. What about the structural hurdles? What can you do about it at your university? I would like to say something to what Mr. Müller said. Appointment commissions, it is about finding the person with the best expert background, the best knowledge in that area. It is not about to select a female professor simply out of the fact that she's a woman, but it is about qualification. And if it does not happen, then there's a bias behind it. And this bias was described in academia, and there are certain mechanisms which some members of the Commission are not aware of. And I wonder why in some subjects, obviously, we are not successful having a better gender mix, for instance. So it is detrimental to the whole topic, equal opportunities. I know that you did not talk about this and that you did not mean that, but that not taking into account different aspects, I think the best suitable candidate should assign to the position, no matter whether it's a man or a woman. So now you asked about structures at the university. Well, the whole topic of power abuse is a topic which we've been dealing with for so many different years in Germany at the different universities. And of course, there are opportunities, and you asked about different mechanisms. I think it is the whole topic of awareness, raising awareness to talk about this issue in public. And of course, you can do it by applying a code of conduct. On the other hand, to have certain structures in place, consulting in place, contact persons for those who face problems. Very often we see we have a consultant structure, a diverse one, as we have at our universities. And I assume that the threshold or the obstacle to address the contact person, that there is an obstacle and it's simply too high. And the question is, what can we do to facilitate access to that contact person?
So perhaps I can say something here. Yes, you're right. You need good consulting, good advising. What I'd hope for is that, say, as the university, which is run by public appointees, public services, you need to be aware of the consequence. You need to have sanctions. It's only if people can go to the contact points, and then it means that they see an effect. And I would hope that there'd be more, that sanctions will be quicker and the protections will be stronger for people. And I'm completely with you there. So I'm thinking about prevention, the steps we can take there in the environment. And I think a code of conduct, a network of people, you have contact points, that's something we can have. We're currently setting up a compliance committee or commission. And of course, and this is the third element, the legal elements, the legal regulations, and we have to use them as far as we can in each case. We've got examples, of course, which I'm not going to name now. So I think, Mr. Müller, I think you want to join in. So we've got studies courses where if there's a doctor, if a doctorate candidate, if there's with the same profile, then if there are subject areas where it's mostly men candidates, maybe women are more reticent. That's a topic we're going to talk about today. Women tend to doubt whether they can achieve, whether they can do their job. So where can we do further down the chain to encourage women to apply for leadership jobs? so that we can see women in higher jobs, in higher level jobs. It's difficult. So I come from IT, and engineering is much more fundamental to HTWK. The situation there, I think there are 50 professors, and there's only one woman professor. So you can see then, so trying to create a commission that reflects that, includes women. So in other faculties, we ask them, can ask female professors from other faculties to join in the appointment commission. But then they come to the point they're involved in too many commissions. And so 2030, so we've got about 100 appointees. So we've got a lot to do at the moment. So, but to come back to the original question. So one point is to start right early in school. So early engagement and this sort of drama. So don't make too much drama, because that's what I said earlier. So there's this sort of drama and these accusations which aren't necessary. So the possibilities, the opportunities are there, as far as I can see. So I think society isn't developed far enough. And to pick up on what you said, the structures at the HTWK are there. We've got equal opportunities officers in every faculty. We've got them involved in the appointment commissions. So we have to live this culture. In my field, we can only say we can only apply for encourage people. Please ask people to apply for jobs and don't withdraw your application. We've done that, and we've been telling women applicants that they have a realistic chance. We can support you in finding this work-life balance with your family and so on. So very often these telephone calls end up with, so we have other challenges. Professors, they have to work in industry for minimum 3 years. And that is often problematic if you're, so after a postdoc and with the family and so on, and people returning to academia is difficult. So you see it as a structural barrier. Yes, so maybe I can add that. So we're not talking about science here or academia here, particularly in engineering and IT, where there are fewer women involved in research. It's also in industry. Yes, of course, industry wants more women engineers. And we have to change a lot here. We need an alliance between academia and the industry when we talk about alliances. So maybe you said society isn't this far. You mentioned this. There's steps backwards. You mentioned that earlier. You perhaps talked about it as a backlash. You talked about anti-feminism. So where are these? So what are the resistances that are stopping us progressing? So this retraditionalization you mentioned, the forces that are pushing that. So what are you facing at the university? So, Mr. Colleague, I'm going to have to, I think society is this far. I'm going to have to contradict you. Society is this, to put into position that see that the basic law demands this, and society is that far. What I see is something is like decades ago we had this discussion about quotas. I think the quota, is it against the basic law here in Germany? And women, we all have experienced, we've probably all experienced, so that sometime we've had our eyes opened. So, for example, it's equal opportunities for everybody. We think that as students, but then there are moments in life when you see it's not the case. Opportunities aren't equal. So the glass ceiling and these kind of things, these are old discussions. but I've got the impression that it's not stagnating. Development's not just stagnating, but it's perhaps retrograde. It's regressing. And what we have to appeal to ourselves. So not probably us here in this room, but women are perhaps tired, exhausted, just tired of saying, accepting everything's fine. You talk about backlash. You asked about that. I think I observe that the topic, that there's a certain tiredness, certain exhaustion that's coming up. We can feel that, and that not everybody's pulling on the same rope. And then there's the concept of gendered language, and I wonder why this has become a political discussion. How can we make that a topic of an election campaign? The language, we're expressing culture. A language expresses culture. There are many, many points which have been discussed for a long, long time, but now, obviously, so they're now more acceptable in society to see them. It's acceptable to see them no longer as an object, as a goal. But it has to be a goal to create equal opportunities. And I think, as I say, equal opportunities, we have to realize that, and we haven't achieved it yet. And there's some degree of tiredness or resignation, or maybe the idea is, well, yeah, okay, we've done enough. We've achieved it. That we've achieved these equal opportunities. That's not. I think that's dangerous to take that attitude. So I was thinking just now, as you were talking here in Germany, in Leipzig, but if you look over in the United States, you see where books are being forbidden, certain speakers are being deplatformed. So it's not just progress you were talking about. So gender, that concept shouldn't be used in the United States. So we're talking about, when we talk about censoring the language, then I think that's not far from there it's to really a retrograde step. And I can see that in the United States, this DEI concept, we've all seen that these DEI concepts, they're not being pursued, that pressure is being exerted not to follow DEI processes in companies and at universities. I think that's a very dangerous development. Ms. Herzberg, Professor Herzberg, so what alliances can work to stand against these kind of developments? Well, we have to get everybody on board, from the rector to the politicians to civic society. I think we need everybody. What I think is important is that we look at the students and our teachers. Are we teaching in such a way that we're encouraging students to live in a democratic society, a society that guarantees equal opportunities? Because the students of today will sit in decisive positions in a few years. And I think that's where we should start, that we should encourage them to democratic thinking, to stick to the facts, that they should stay to that basis, and values like equal opportunities. And that's what I would hope for. And young people who are sort of picking up, so Andrew Tate's on TikTok, so these short messages, so this retraditionalization there. So if women become trad wives and don't want to have a career, which you perhaps described as resignation. So retraditionalization, so I just speak to look at the structures. If we look at how many students who begin, it's 50% men, women. In the doctorate candidate, it's about 40%. So it depends on the subject. So it looks differently in our humanities field. It's around about 45% women. So women leave in the postdoc phase, and that's the only option to stay in academia is to get a professorship, and you have to do that, achieve that within 6 years, according to the laws here. And exactly And this postdoc phase is where women have the desire to set up a family, and that slows women's career progress down. And I think it's really important that we work to this best. So this law that we have in Germany, we should get rid of this concept of fixed-term contracts. So I think that's what we need to work on. So there are study courses where it's about 66% of professors, they asked if they're a father, who looks after the women, and only 6% say it's mostly the men rarely take care of the children, whereas the women have to juggle both jobs. So we thought 2021 we managed to achieve this era in this change. And then there was the question is, where do they stay? Where do they get stuck on the progress? And you can see in this postdoc phases, there's this crossover, and that's when women fall away, and there are reasons for that. And that's where, as professors, female professors, where we have to be active. We have to advise people. I had this experience in legal studies, law studies, and in the faculty there. If you take the male certificate, you ask somebody to go to his postdoc, then the male will often say yes. But if you ask a female scientist, academic, they'll often say no. So you mentioned it before, they're perhaps more reticent in applying for jobs. And I think it's up to us to encourage young female academics and to encourage them, to show them that they can have a career. There are options, there are possibilities, there's mother protection, the mother laws and so on. And there's the legal frameworks here in Germany. And after the postdoc qualification, a lot of women don't get a professorship straight away. They get a temporary professorship, they're on the market, and then after a while, they have to get the professorship, obviously, if you go this classical academic career path. But I think here in Saxony, we've got a new personnel category, senior lecturers, senior lectors. This is a career which is beside being the professorship. And I talked about professorships. I did that on purpose. And as professors, as deans, rectors, as colleagues, as friends, we need to encourage. It's a project. It's a high-risk project because you don't know whether you're going to find this professorship, whether you're going to get this job, this appointment. But I think it's really worth it. It's about encouraging each other. So I think Mr. Müller wants to say something. So I want to pick up on something. My point is we are already in a very good position. We can achieve more. So there's a point with this legal framework that we have. So it's an interesting point. It's new to me. In the HDWK, we're there, and here at the University of Leipzig, it's going to happen with master students. So we've got female students, so to involve them in science projects, to bring them into the room with professors, to bring them in with female professors, to allow this spark to jump. So you can show them this is where you're welcome, this is the field that you can work in. So this could be a career path for you. We need to live that. We need to systematically develop that. We need programs, we need to improve. We've got these programs, we need to improve them. They are successful. In our last role, we had one doctoral candidate. So there's another one. So cooperative progress. We're cooperating with industry. We're getting them on board as well. This point, this transition, I can see this that they can see, first of all, that female students can see they have to go into industry and they can come back to the university. So I maybe was a bit negative. So I see the world is in a sinus wave, and at the moment, as far as this is concerned, I think we're in the valley at the moment, but I think it's still nonetheless a good position that we're in. So this message is, we haven't this democratic society that we have, and if we look at the period that we're developing, so maybe I think as society overall we're doing a pretty good job. Maybe we'll 50 years, we need 50 more years of patience perhaps. So that's a positive look into the future. And so we've pointed out a few times that you should be involved. I've got a few impulses, I had that sense. But before we go into the discussion with you, I'd like to maybe have a constructive picture of the future. Where do you think we can achieve, what do you think we can achieve with this sinus curve that you mentioned? So what next 10, 15 years, what can we achieve in the next 10, 15 years? We have these alliances with industry, with professors to empower students. What can we achieve? I think we can achieve a parity. That was the motto of the Rita Susmuth, who recently died. So in the Women's Day 2-3 years ago, she was in the state parliament here in Saxony, and she said she gave us this motto, this maxim. And you mentioned industry, so we can also involve in politics. Where are the female deputies, female members of parliament? So throughout society we can achieve parity, and that should be our goal, and we can work towards that. And we won't achieve it the day after tomorrow, but it doesn't mean that we can't start working on it today. So would you like to add something? The future, the vision. I think we can achieve a lot if we have reliable structurals of employment structures where women can have a career, can build a career, and we need to pay attention, look at where we're losing women, abuse of power, which is often takes a sexual form. And I think as the academic system, the research system, we have to give women a chance to work in a field where they feel comfortable and safe. And that leads me to what I hoped that our panelists would pick you up, that they would ask you to come to their table. So we're going to have a few final statements so that you can discuss them later. So maybe Ms. Herzberg, Professor Herzberg, where would you like to start with your listeners? What do you want to talk to them about? So I'd like to talk about how we can make the university better, what concrete ideas you have, what we can do at the universities or other research institutes, and I'd like to talk about why we lose so many women on the career path to professor. So the women who are currently standing up at the moment, that's the choir. So they'll be coming back in just a moment. So Mr. Müller, over to you, Professor Müller. So what would you like to talk about on your table? I think we should not talk about the entire career path, engineers, that we need to start at school, right through to industry. That fits with our project of the personnel qualities. So my focus, that's what I'd like to focus on. And Professor Rector Obergfell, what would you like to say? So if this is my final statement, then I want to add one thing. So I'd like to say thank you very much to the Office for Equal Opportunities for organizing this. So I know who've shaped this evening and this afternoon. So thank you very much to them. And I'd also like to have discussion, is parity, whether it's an exaggeration or whether it's the right way. So we've got one table is open, so if you can't make a decision, then come to us in the middle, Nancy Ugel, Johanna Ludwig from the Office of Equal Opportunities, are here, and we're going to assist you in discussing amongst yourselves. But of course, you can enjoy talking to each other. So first of all, thank you very much to Jean Müller from HDWK, Professor Julia Herzberg, and Rector Eva Inés Obergfell.
Wir machen wieder kleine Umbau.
Short break before we listen once again to the choir Lumina. Thank you very much to the choir Lumina, and now become part of the rearranging phase. I would like to I know it was a lot of input. Maybe it was enough for you and you want to leave, but we are pleased if you stay and if you share your thoughts with us. And after that, maybe an incentive. We've got time for snacks and drinks out in the foyer, so you can share your ideas out in the foyer. But if you like to do it now, of course, take your time to do so. But now we would like to invite you to join the tables for our table talks, and here in the middle, we will have our peer table. You see here the different arrangements. Table 1 is in that corner, table 2 over there, and table 3 over there, and we stay here in the middle of the room.
Mann, ich bin Umweltradiologie, habilitiert 2022.
Ja, genau, richtig. Willkommen. Ich komme aus dem Frauenfach.
Sehr schön. Kommen Sie gerne alle noch einen Schritt näher. Darf ich bitten, in die Richtung ein wenig Platz zu lassen, denn das ist der Tisch, der im Livestream mitgefilmt wird und deshalb wäre es wichtig, gerne dort in Richtung der Säule. So, Sie können gerne auf der Seite stehen bleiben, genau, aber nur so, dass Sie auch alle gut noch hören können. Und wundern Sie sich nicht, wir benutzen die Mikrofone nur, damit die Simultanübersetzung in der Lage ist,
for simultaneous interpreters and for the live stream. Don't be too shy, please come closer, because this is your opportunity to share your ideas and to discuss with our rectors. talked about parity.
Das läuft nur im Livestream. Was ist Ihnen da durch den Kopf gegangen?
What did you think when you hear parity, or do you want to contradict probably? Are these the only minorities? We need diversities. We need to think bigger. But did we achieve parity? I think this is also anchored in the Grundgesetz. It does not exist in the United States, but in the German Grundgesetz, Article 3, it says men and women are equal. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, and I do not want to quote comments, but this is something which is really outstanding. And of course, I'm in favor of diversity. No, there's no question, because this is our strength. But if we cannot fulfill what's written in the Grundgesetz, then I think let's start it. It's just 30, 40, 50 years that we started it. I fully agree. It's absolutely necessary, especially at the universities. We need to have a pioneering role. We need to implement it. Unfortunately, the speaker is off mic and the interpreters hardly hear anything. So what can we do at the universities? We lecturers close to the students. What can we do? I'm representing a group of postdoc students from the Medical Institute. What are you doing for the postdoc students? Thank you very much for coming. For the postdoc students, for the PhD students, for the students, for the female professors, I think for all of the women at the universities or institutes, we need to do something. I do not want to avoid answering your question, but let me get one step back. Unfortunately, we are in the midst of a big social discussion, and that's to say we have to start in the kindergarten right away, and everyone can do something. I do not want to underline the fact that girls are not interested in science or in technology. That is simply not true. It is simply not true. But girls are told to be interested in other things, not in technology and so on and so forth. So the postdoc students, the private lecturers, those who are far advanced on the career ladder are the ones who are in a really special position. It's only a handful of female researchers. Ms. Herzberg quoted the figures before, and then my subject, I think it's 50 plus students, less than 30 PhD students, and less than 9 or 11% of postdoc students or female professors. So I'm really pleased that you are representing the female postdocs, and I hope I could express what I felt, that I would like to support women in every stage. And I would like to ask you, what can I do? What can we do for you? How can we support you so that you don't fall off the system, so that you stay within the system, that you climb up the career ladder? I do not know what you are studying, that you may become a surgeon, a heart surgeon, or become whatever you want to become. Maybe an area where classically it's male-dominated one. What can I do? What can we do? I think we all have to do it. This is what we said. Today, we have to have more advertisement for me, the way to the professorship. I saw my way to become a professor only when someone else told me, why don't you become a professor? When my boss approached me and told me, why don't you want to become a professor? You want to work self-determined. And that is why, this was the reason why I wrote my PhD. I said, well, actually, my mentor was right. telling me, becoming a boss, becoming a professor. Well, maybe he said it in a way other people don't like, saying, girl, why don't you become this or that? But very often women don't dare to do it. We don't have the self-confidence, and this is what we were told constantly right from the beginning. And I think we all can do much more about it to support, to encourage those in the beginning of their career, showing them the path to the professorship. And this is what I told one assistant doctor. I told her, I see your potential. Why don't you follow the career path? And some weeks after, she came to me and said, well, I now see clearly what you meant. Thank you very much, Ms. Richter, for your contribution. I think every one of us in her respective position can do exactly that, encouraging our colleagues, encouraging young colleagues, because we are the ones who act as mentors. We don't think big enough, and I think this is our mistake, so to speak, but this has been developed for centuries. Thinking big. Maybe I give you a stupid example. During my time at school, the students around me, my fellow students, learned typewriting. And I refused to do it because I said, why should I do it? Someone will write for me. This is nothing for me. And I would like to use it as an image. I do not want to discriminate a certain profession, but I don't see that there are professions earmarked for women only. So the other way around, professions earmarked for women, these are the stereotypes, and we should not live up to the stereotypes. And I make a huge leap forward. I studied law. Of course, I wanted to earn my own. Money. I want to be independent. I didn't know that I will become a scientist or work at a university. I had male mentors. Maybe the prof I worked for, colleagues, older colleagues, much older than I was. There were no competitors, nota bene, and they really supported me. They gave recommendations, and this is what we need, actually. This is what we all need. So the topic confidence, self-confidence, maybe you want to start? Well, I think if we talk about equal opportunities, we need to talk about how to define our expectations. I think there are so many expectations, so-called neutral expectations, designed for the ordinary ways, to be available, to have a linear professional career. And I see a bias. You talked about it. It requires the most qualified person independent of gender. I'm fully against the fact that women with children need a different recognition of their achievements. We need structural opportunities for all to achieve the same. Maybe at another point in time, these are just a given. Me being a mom, I can say that. But at the age of 35, I did my postdoc. I completed 3 different studies. I'm really proud. Well, you can be. But I'm of the opinion that in academic career, you have to go or walk the extra mile. You really have to do it. This is a high-risk project, as you pointed it out, and the support should not be limited to individual needs, but it requires a structural change. Addressing women, we need more role models, female role models, and we need to be loud and visible at the same time. Maybe one additional remark from another perspective. I'm an appointed female professor from the Medical Institute. I'm a member of so many different appointment commissions. And in this whole time, I think I was member of 15 to 20 different appointment commissions, and there was not a single woman listed. There were simply no applications by women. And the question is, what are the standards we set? The standards who we want to have as colleagues in our institutes. And the criteria are impact factor and third-party funds in medical subject. And there are hardly any applications by women. And then you sit in these appointment commissions. As a woman, you should support women. There are no appointments by women. And I'm contacted in appointment procedures. I'm called and I'm asked to appoint, and in 2 or 3 appointment procedures, I had the impression to invite me for a symposium to start the whole process. I think we all know that. We all know that. And just being a number in the proceedings and in the process, I think this is a really bitter pill to take. And it has nothing to do with qualification and achievements. Maybe at this time we need the alliances we talked about. We need alliances and we need colleagues. Maybe I can say something about it. I come from the Medical Institute. I'm a biologist, and I'm head of a research institute in dentistry. I worked at the Max Planck Institute. I worked abroad. I traveled the world, and I think transparency and appointment procedures are really important. I applied for 35 different positions before finally I got a position at the Leipzig University. There was no other country where these processes took up to 4 years. So, and I think we need to speed up the procedures. I like the processes in Scandinavia. I knew right from the beginning about appointments, the dates. I knew when the different dates, as I said, and it was a full transparency. We don't have that in Germany. It takes far too long, and very often as a candidate, I don't even get the information that the process was completed. And why can't we have more transparent processes? And I think this would be really, really helpful for all stakeholders. I come from a working background, so this is hardly taken into account. Why can't we change it? Why can't we say in Leipzig there are so many different research institutions? This is really a competitive edge. That is why I returned to Leipzig. Why can't we pioneer in terms of time, attracting people to universities, attracting really good people, yes, professional, more transparent processes, and I think this is what we need to achieve. I want to have professional processes when it comes to time. I think in medicine there are no civil servants, state employment. This is, we depend on the ministry. And in the ministry, it takes months. So there is one part which we can't influence when we depend on the ministries in certain appointment procedures. Well, it hurts what you said, and I'm fully with you, but I really hope that we see a change and that we can speed up the whole process. There is another woman. Asking for parity implemented, is that exaggerated to ask for it? It's my own experience to work at a faculty at an institute. I don't have the figures, but I think about 30%, of course. There's work in different committees, parity. You see. What about practical implementation? We talked about implicit bias, not only with male colleagues, but by socializing. And it starts in the kindergarten. Why do we think some professions are not entitled for women or suitable for women? There are role models, male role models. There's research, for instance, that there are role models for certain professions, and it's a stereotype right from the beginning. And I think one simple idea would be the question, what about autonomy for professors? You see it in non-university institutions. There are trainings for committee members who voluntarily participated in these trainings or coachings, training about implicit biases, trying to get rid of stereotypes. And I think this is really important to have this, to be open-minded. It's part of the job description to work in different committees and in different commissions. Very often we are not well trained for it. Maybe it's in your own interest to take part in these trainings, but I think it should be more institutionalized.
Das wäre eine Idee.
So that's the last thing I could say. So this anti-bias trainings we have, so that's a German-English mixture. But we've got, for example, Leipzig Science Network. We've got these kind of workshops. We've also got people in the appointment committees, but it's not compulsory to take part in those. And that's generally the problem. If I want to make something, if I make something compulsory, then how much do people pay attention in those kind of things? These are things that are available, and it's important to talk about them constantly. As a director, so a lot of people have to pay attention, have to put up with the fact that I talk about these topics and put them on the table. And I do that. And nobody can and I go in and talk to people about it and say, and really rub their noses in it. And I say, why is this a purely male field? And why is it that in this subject there's no suitable female candidates? People have to deal with that. I'm just going to take over the role of talk about this equal opportunities officer. These are the people who come to these trainings are very often the people who don't need the thing. They have the basic ideal. So often there's a question, how do we get to the people that we really need to pay attention, we need to talk to? So I'm sure you've had examples of that. You've seen that to get people, everybody's aware of it. We know there are studies there, but so there's no call to action. It's not as an effect. So if you've got anything else from the panel discussion that you want to, I've started writing a wish list here so that the rector can poke people with them. So I want to share an experience that maybe be something to think about as far as cultural changes concerned. It can take a long time. So in Kiel, in the University of Kiel, I saw it there, and I took part in modules that all of the candidates are there who are appointed to jobs. There's a module with 3-4 seminars, and I wonder whether that's maybe an idea to implement that here. People who start working at a university, it can't help them, it can't hurt, even if they're interested or not. So I think for me, it seemed very professional and very inviting, and I didn't have the sense that people who were there, they didn't see it in a negative way. They saw it as part of the process, as kind of the onboarding process, is to take part in this 3-4 events. Whether it has an effect is another question. So whether you apply it every day. So I thought that was a great idea that I'd like to give you. I thought it's something that's relevant. Thank you very much for the impulse. So the effort is definitely a topic. I think we all agree. We'd like to get all of the new colleagues before they start working. Then yes, it would be really good. So yes, we'll take that on board. Thank you. We've noted it. So what about the panel? What irritated you maybe? So maybe something that you want to talk about, that we should talk about, other perspectives as far as alliances are concerned?
I have to apologize first because my Deutsch is not
it's going to talk in English.
But there's something that has been bothering me. You know, we always talk about power and abuse, but we always talk from the point of view of the professors. But what about people that you work with, you know, as a woman? And these microaggressions, right? It could be even from the tone of the email or the way they dismiss you when you're talking in your meetings. People shut you down, you know, try to talk over you. And you know that you are competent. You know, for some of us who are a bit older, right, and maybe we got experience from other places, and Germany may not be the first place we have worked, but none of this matters. So you're almost treated like you're less qualified, even with the PhD. You may even be the more qualified person in the room, but nobody takes you seriously. And so you have to fight these like internal battles with people and wondering, at what point do you speak out? So it's not only sexual abuse that drives women from the workplace, you know, because you keep all this emotional, you know, because you want to be, you know, calm in the workplace. And for international researchers whose visas depend on having a job, you are forced sometimes to keep quiet. But not me, because in a way, not everyone is the same. You don't know, for example, who my father is or who my husband is or who my brother is, you know, but what about those people who are in weaker positions? I always find myself, you know, I count myself lucky. So what can the university do for people who are like new to the environment so that they're in a way protected and they don't leave the workplace because some people do not know how to talk to their colleagues, especially if they're women and they're foreign women?
Okay, the visa issue is not solvable by us. It's obvious. In the working groups and seminars and so on, and I ask you, what do you think? What would be helpful because it really what you are saying is shocking me. Yeah, it's impossible. It's impossible.
It is possible because sometimes I think that people always assume that you're in a weaker position, so you're not going to say anything.
That's a bias,
So it's a bias. But what I've done is because I don't try to focus on what they're doing and focus on delivering on my job. I'm at the Institute of African Studies, or at least I'm affiliated to it. But I work on another project, right? So I think, first of all, is to be calm and not take everything personally and try and escalate it, because I've also spoken to people in the international office and they've told me what to do. But you don't want to go to HR and seem as if you are the problem.
No, obviously.
So I've not gone.
Yeah, but what can be done in a structural way? Okay. You know, from the university, not from what you are doing personally. I mean, what can we do to protect our international scholars?
Maybe.
And students as well.
Orientation, so they know their rights, and you know, I think orientation to give you know, persons to contact persons or something like that. No, maybe like orientation about what to do or what is not accepted, and also even training for the people already working.
Yeah, perhaps a code of conduct can help, because this would be, you know, a consensus about the manner we live together here. We work together. So this is our internal rules, not in a legal sense.
Yes, but it should be for everyone.
Yeah, for
and
everyone.
Even if you've been here for 10, 20 years, refresher courses
for everyone.
For a reason. Yes.
Sie haben alle den Gong gehört.
War der extra? Also war der
That was special. That was extra, especially. It was the first gun. So just a little orientation. So we're stopping recording, but of course, if you've got questions, so then we can add a few minutes, definitely.
Just for you as an information, the simultaneous translation is still working for this. Okay, so we're going on practicing. All right. All right. Möchte jemand noch mal das Mikro? Gibt es Wortmeldungen? Vielleicht auch untereinander? Also
maybe you want to talk to each other. So particularly the statement you just heard. So that would interest you. So what are these measures to create parity, to get closer to it? So So parity, 50-50, we haven't achieved that yet. So why, that was something you heard. So the new measure, the new goal. So yeah, I can perhaps put the answer this way. So you've got next to you, you've got the head of the Office for Equal Opportunities. So from this whole team is behind her. It's working towards to create equal opportunities, to create equal opportunity to work. So in sense of diversity, we're in the process of creating equal opportunities concept. So in the idea with DEI, diversity, it's courageous because everybody, half the world is throwing DEI overboard. So we're working on it at the moment. We're going to be, my pro-rector's nodding an agreement. So we're about to pass it. And then it will be put into the relevant bodies, into the commissions. And the other, as far as abuse and misuse of power is concerned, I mentioned that earlier. So we want to create a compliance structure. So I've become aware from Ms. Herzberg mentioned this, that it's a major obstacle for women, but I hope that it's not the main point. I hope that the things we've been talking about here, so the non-visible, the invisible, and the non-graspable hurdles. So people talk about the glass ceiling. So I think these are mechanisms, they're still effective, and we can do something against those. That's actually much more difficult. So in addition to what I said, strategy, equal opportunities, implying it, implementing it, and so on and so forth, an extra point is, and this is the personal point, it's for all of us, it's the beginning of says that we can do everything, we can do something every single day, everywhere, whether it's private, so giving somebody advice on their studies, or whether you're talking to somebody or doing something for your own doctoral candidates. But also, I'm involved in so many commissions outside the university, so many bodies. So just recently, I've been one in a non-university body organ, a big academic society, and I was always the ex-outsider. So I could concentrate on the plausibility question and gender. That's what I could focus on. We can always do something everywhere. And I'm very aware of the responsibility that I have in my role and my function. And I don't know whether I can live up to that. I'm just a human being. I'm trying to do it. That's my aim. And I need support. Because I think that's what I mean with alliance. I come back to my basic point. As an alliance, that's what we can do, what we can achieve. Men and women, everybody, we can all work towards these equal opportunities. And if you think in terms of diversity, it means the first gen. So those who weren't born into academic families. So not to forget those as well. I'm one of them too. So there's a few others here who are probably in that group. So thank you very much for this exchange. Thank you very much for your questions. So it's unusual, it's rare that we can have this kind of conversation to talk directly to the rector. So please don't go yet. So please do stay and continue the conversation after you've had something to eat, a snack. So we're looking forward to hearing the critical. So I think trust, confidence in yourself, but also confidence in other people. So assessing what does it mean, the most qualified person, what does that mean? It's a question about process. We talked about speed of process. So to keep people on board, to not lose people in the track, on the way. So the rector is stay equal opportunities is what she's referring to. So we're going to take everything on board, the ideas, the impulses that came from today, and we want to put it into measures. We say, what are we going to do? So we've got to make structural changes, but there's also individual offers for individuals. So personnel, talent management. So it's not just, we need to make that available to women, to tailor it to women as well. And so thank you very much. Welcome to the Alliance. Parity, that's our special topic. So hope you enjoy your conversations, and thank you to you, Madam Rector. Thank you. Also thanks to our guests from the live stream. We don't know how many there were. Thank you very much. And I think we should do it more often, at least once a year on the 11th, but also in the meantime. So we're planning next year's event already. Thank you.